welcome back to the Christian channel. My name is Claire McCallan, and we are blessed to be with director, producer Josh Saby today to talk about his new documentary, Blue Baby, all about Father Flanagan's Boys Town. Josh, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Claire.
So, first of all, how did you get attached to this project? What about Boys Town drew you in? How did you find out about it? Because I actually didn't know until the film.
Yeah, so we actually were the team behind American Tragedy, which deals with another set of problem behavior. It deals with Columbine, the school shooting, and we interviewed the mother of one of the school shooters and talked about sort of her son and her journey after Columbine of trying to understand her son's involvement. So that film came out, and during the process, we actually were introduced to Boys Town and their model of dealing with problem behavior. In a very different world from like school shooting to this, but that was the connection actually for us. And so we were just really interested in what Boys Town was doing, and we actually went and visited, and we're just totally blown away by what we saw there.
Okay, so Boys Town, for those at home who don't know, it is a different model for dealing with problem behavior in young men, kind of like a prison or juvie alternative, right? Established in 1917 by Father Flanagan. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Cool. So, can you tell us what makes their model different than the normal punitive measures?
Yeah, so exactly. So they it really started with Father Flanagan, who really had just an idea, which was that there are no bad boys. And so he just really thought, the problem isn't that these boys were born, these aren't just rotten eggs, right? And so if that's not the problem, then it's something else. Maybe they have bad examples, maybe it's bad environment, maybe it's lack of opportunity, maybe it's poverty. It could be all sorts of things, but maybe it's not just them. Maybe they're not the problem. And that was particularly important at the time when this was when eugenics was really popular, and people really had that idea that these people are just sort of bad. And he really fought against that and developed a whole model of believing in these boys and that they want to be good. And if they're not acting that way, maybe they're lacking skills. And so that's ultimately what Boys Town developed, was a skill-based model where they just taught pro-social skills to these kids so they had what they needed to be successful in life.
Before going into this film, because I'm sure that your mind and heart were opened so much through the
Yeah.
process of learning about it and creating, I guess before going in, did you believe that maybe there were some bad kids out there, or were you already on board?
You know, I guess I don't know. I'm not sure to ever like crystallize in my head what I believe about people with really problem behavior. I think, but I think I was surprised by what I saw, and really moved by both the boys and their family. I think maybe I had assumptions that maybe they weren't bad, but maybe they just came from really bad families or something, which could be a situation. But so many of these boys, it was more complex than that. They really had families struggling, you know, to support them, struggling to support themselves, dealing with really serious poverty, but really trying their best to make it and to be good.
Something I always have to remind myself when I catch myself judging someone, because I'm like, oh, well, they don't make good choices. I make better choices. And there's that wonderful thing I heard that one time where it's like, you don't just make better choices, you had better choices. And I think sometimes it's
Yeah.
valuable for us who have just had better options. It's easier to make better choices when you have better options available to you. So, uh, how do we go about, I guess, offering these boys better options? You're showing them a life that they didn't know was available to them. Can you give us some examples of how Boys Town does that?
Yeah, well, let me just so the title of the film is Blue Baby, and that comes from this idea that we interviewed Pat Fryman, and he's actually the head of the whole behavioralist approach there at Boys Town, and he talks about coming up to a light, and that you're behind another car and waiting for them to go. The light turns green and they don't move, and then it turns red again. You're super frustrated. You get out of your car and you go up there, and you see in the back seat there's a baby that's turning blue, and he said the point of this analogy is that there's always a baby in the back seat. And what he was saying is that behavior makes sense. That when you look at the lives of these kids, their decisions aren't even bad decisions. They actually make sense. And some of their skills they learned are adaptive skills in certain environments. So maybe a lot of these boys got into fights all the time, right? And it's like, why are you getting into fights? This is not something I struggle with. I'm not like walking down the street and like getting in a fight with someone. Matter of fact, I've never been in a fight, and yet I saw at Boys Town these boys get into fights regularly, and it's like why have they developed this sort of chip on their shoulder, real defensiveness? And it makes sense when you see like when a lot of these boys have been in gangs, and that was actually a survival tactic. And so you have these adaptive behaviors that actually make sense in certain contexts. And when you take them out into new places, whether it's the workplace or marriage, they become maladaptive. And so Boys Town really tries to teach them the social skills they need to be successful. And so they do that in all these different contexts. From they actually live in family units, so like actually with a family. So there's a married couple with their kids that live in a house at Boys Town, and then they take in 8 additional kids that live with them. And so they actually live in that family and they learn how to function in a family because that's a skill they're all going to need. And then they're taught the same set of skills there as they're taught in school and on their sports teams. So it's just really wraparound service where they really get the crucial pro-social skills that they're going to need to hold a job, to be a productive citizen.
That's amazing. And more and more as I hope that we've reached the basin of how low the disintegration of the nuclear family and the communities. As I feel like we've hit rock bottom about how bad we can disintegrate that. And now is the really exciting time through programs like Boys Town, or what comes to mind is L'Arche, the co-living space for adults with disabilities, where you have young adults often living with adults with disabilities, and these co-living programs that are popping up everywhere. I recently spoke to a gentleman in France who's buying up all these unused old monasteries in rural France and making co-living spaces for the poorest of the poor and young families, very similar
Oh,
to
so cool. Yeah.
town. And we're sort of taking the scraps of what used to be our communities and our nuclear families, and we're just rebuilding it in a new way. It's super exciting to see it manifesting in all these different areas. Something the audience doesn't know that's kind of cool is that we are taking this call kind of late today because I was told it's 10 p.m. where I am here in Boston. And I was told it's because you have to put your kids to bed, which is very
Right.
sweet and very good, fatherhood first. Was there anything you learned as a dad, as a parent, from doing this project?
Absolutely. I mean, it really has impacted my parenting in a very real way. And it's sort of a joke at Boys Town is that there's this like extra benefit of working there is that you actually learn skills for parenting because we all deal with problem behavior right now. These are very extreme cases of problem behavior at Boys Town. These are kids that would be in jail often, but we all we all parents, we have a kid that's making bad choices, and one way to analyze that is like why you're bad or why are you being bad right or like don't make bad choices and there's some reality to the fact that we're not perfect and we do make bad choices but it's much more helpful from a practical perspective to just say what context would help you make better choices, right? Like what can we do to change the context? As I know my kids want to be good, they really do, and they love when they are good and they know they're good like that. They beam right when they're like I did something good, but it's not always easy to make good choices, and so it's about nudging them in that direction, right? Um and giving them the skills. So one thing that I've changed specifically is just the language of skill. Like when I tell my son Clarence, he needs to. So when they're like fighting over a toy, him and Cal, I'll say, Clarence, I need you to use your skills here. What could you do? To negotiate the situation, and we have a set of skills that he goes through. So one is taking turns, right? That's a skill. Another is distraction. You could try to distract Cal with another toy. So we have a set of skills that he goes through, and just thinking about it as skills and not as like a moral deficiency, I think is really helpful for them too, to internalize it as like I'm not a morally deficient person because I'm making bad choices. Like I'm okay, and God made me good, and I can be good. I just need to learn the necessary skills.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so this is the question I ask all my directors. Big question. Who is your film for? Who should see this film?
Yeah, so there's a few audiences that I think would really benefit from seeing this film. It's very much a a prison reform film in some ways. In some ways, that is a huge target audience. People that are invested in that space because we talk about the whole history of punishment. We talk about why punishment doesn't work. We show these boys that would have gone to prison going to Boys Town, and we show the complexity of their lives. So anyone involved in like problem behavior, whether you're like CASA or judges or lawyers, defense attorneys, prosecution attorneys, like all of that space should definitely see this film. But then on a broader audience, like I was just saying, parents, like anyone that wants to really understand problem behavior better and have a bigger view of what reality is like, not just for your kids, but for the most vulnerable kids in our country. Like these are, what their life is like, and what it will take to help them. And so I guess that's one other audience. So like parents for their own kids, and then like anyone invested in this country, because there's a ton of poverty in our country, right? And there's a lot of childhood poverty, and we lead developed nations in that. And to understand what that's like, and to get involved, and how can you help in your space, in your community? How can you get involved in the lives of these kids? And that's why we put on the poster, a fight for America's youth, because we need, they need mentors, they need support, and you should watch this film. If you care about the youth of this country, you should watch the film.
That is awesome. And where can people watch it? It came out October 9th. This will be up October 10th. Where can people watch it? I know there's Amazon Prime. Where else?
Yeah, so it's on Amazon Prime. It's on Apple TV, and it's on Google Play. So those are the three places that you can watch it. And you would just search like Blue Baby, maybe Blue Baby movie, and you would find it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. We'll let you head to bed now too. You can see Blue Baby in all those streamers. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.